Hi, I'm Phil, and today we're going to make our own watch. And we'll do a little bit more than that. We'll also have a look at the history of watches and clocks, and we'll make all of this into a STEM activity. So you can experience what it might be like in a school setting. So the computer we're going to use is the M5 Stick C. And that is going to house the program for your watch. We'll go through a few stages. The simplest one I'll outline step by step, and the more complicated ones you can have a go on your own, but I will post the solution on Dropbox. Okay, I guess watches have come a long way since my grandfather used to wear this. And he had a job where timekeeping was quite important. Okay, we'll talk more about that later. Okay, so I'm now going to share the screen so you can see the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so let's start the presentation. I'm going to use a mind map starting off from the description on the top right. I'm going to move my way around clockwise until I come to the references. So if you want to follow up some of the suggestions that I've got, they'll be contained in the reference section. So what is it? Make your own watch. And we'll explore the world of time measurement. Quite an important area in science, but not only just science. There's an interest in some of the words. Where did they come from? How are they connected to our society and civilization? So quite a lot to explore. So you can make this a personal watch. May not be the best design, but it gives you a bit of an idea. And in some ways, it's a prototype. So quite suitable as a project in STEM education. So our objective is that your watch, you should be able to see it from at least half a meter while the watch is on your wrist. And you can see the hours, minutes, and seconds. It's got to be wearable, so be on your wrist, and it should have a strap and buckle. It's also important, this session is to learn about how to use some of the tools in the M5 stack program called UIFlow. And we'll be looking at the UI. UI stands for user interface. We'll be looking at how to create variables in the program, how to use mathematics, logic, and a stretch goal will be to repackage and configure our program to make it more readable using functions. So this is an example of a STEM project, and you might get the students might be asked to go and explore the origin of time measurement. And they can do most of the work on the project. Go and use Google, find out what were the first clocks that were used by man, and how did they evolve in time. But you can also extend this to see what the family has. Is there an old watch still somewhere in the house that perhaps belonged to your granddad? Or do some of your photos, do they show anyone with a watch? Okay, so you could extend that, and you could ask other questions about how accurate watches are. And as the accuracy improved, additional functions like the second hand was added. What I find fascinating is to find out where the words in time measurement and watches, where they came from. So where did the word clock, where did the word watch come from? What about the units of time? And what is the link to mathematics? So today we're using time as a very important fundamental measure in physics and in science, but we can get quite a number of other measurements or derived measurements like speed, acceleration. They can all need time as a basic parameter. So it's also interesting to actually explore how we keep standards so we can make sure that our watch is synchronized to local time, and that even local time is synchronized to a world standard. So a related project could be a timer, not only just an egg timer, but a timer that you might want to use in cooking. So if you've got an accurate timer, you can do many things. And I'll give you some references that allow you to go a bit further. Okay, so what is the origin of time measurement? If you get the kids to go and Google what was the first mechanical clock, they might come back with a Wikipedia result that says the first clock came around about the 13th century in Europe. And that'll be an interesting point, because a lot of references on the internet are actually wrong. So the first mechanical clock came from China. And we'll have a look at that. So this is a picture. You can imagine this is actually not a tiny clock at all. It's like a 3-story building, 10 meters. And it was built to try and help the emperor so that he could choose the right time when conception happened for his heir. That is, this clock was more than just a simple clock. It was actually a model of the universe and the heavens. And at the right time, the clock would tell the staff in the emperor's palace when the best time was to have sex. So this clock actually went through 3 different versions. The first one wasn't all that successful because it didn't work in winter. It used water, not for the clock movement, but it used water as a source of power. And it did have quite an accurate control with a water wheel escarpment. The other 2 versions actually got a bit better, and they considered replacing the water with mercury, which doesn't freeze as easily as water. Okay, how about the first watch? Well, the credit goes to a European who lived in Nuremberg in Germany. And Nuremberg just happened to be on an important trade route which had connections to the Middle East, India, and China. So Peter Henlin, he actually took a clock and created a miniature version of it. And it's called the Pommadier watch. So in 1505, the first watch was created. So from that date on, watches had to get better by improving their mainspring and allowing more energy so you didn't have to wind them up as often. And they used materials which were less dependent on temperature change. So they became more and more accurate. Okay, so both of my granddads had watches. One of my granddads, he worked for the London Manchester Railway, and his watch was given to him by the railway because it was quite important for a safety reason to keep everything on time. My other granddad, I've only got one photo, and the photo shows him with his watch chain. And he was a timekeeper, and keeping time measurements was very important to him. Okay, so get the kids to go and explore the meaning of the words, and there'll be some interesting surprises because some of those words overlap, not only with time measurement, but they also, if you have a protractor and you're measuring angles, you'll find that seconds and minutes overlap, which is quite interesting. Some of our modern measurements depend on a really good reference. And there's a really interesting museum in Greenwich, which I've been to, which shows you some of the first clocks which are used. And of course, Greenwich now is one of the, origin for Greenwich Mean Time and for the world standard reference. Okay, so let's get on to our project. For the hardware, even with the kit, you only need the M5 Stick C, and that will be located on the watch band, which is part of the kit. With a speaker hat, you can add that to the M5 Stick C and create an alarm function for your watch. We'll only consider that as an extension or a future project. Another future project could be that you get the GPS unit from M5 Stack, and if you connect that to the M5 Stick C, you can collect GPS time, which is very, very accurate. It uses atomic clocks on the satellite, and there are programming modules which are quite easy to use, which will allow you to synchronize your watch with the GPS system. Okay, so our first project will be quite simple. We're just going to use a simple 1-second timer as we go round the loop, and we'll increment seconds as we go on that loop. As extensions, you can do your own program to set time. You can also do other projects that allow you to use the hardware timer, which is built into your M5 Stick C, and that will give you much more accurate timing. You can build an alarm clock, or as I said, you can synchronize your watch with either GPS, or you can use the Network Timing Protocol, or NTP, and synchronize with a national or international time standard. Okay, so the first project, the outcome should look like this on that photo. And all we want to do is have a watch which is readable, keeps reasonable accurate time. And after we're finished it, we'll see if we can make improvements. Perhaps we could make the display a bit bigger. So let's see what the objective is. We're going to make the watch, and we've covered some of these points earlier. One of the things we need to do is actually rotate the text. And on the UIFlow program, there's a simulator for the display, and you can manipulate the properties of labels or text to make sure they are orientated in the right position. So we'll have a look at that with a live demonstration. The program is going to look like this. Not many steps, but it does have two parts. Right on top, there's the setup, and this is where your program starts. As soon as you power up, it goes into setup, and it only does these steps once. Setup is followed by loop, and loop goes through all of these steps, then just repeats itself. And all we're doing here is setting up labels on our display to show hours, minutes, and seconds. We wait a minute, or we wait 1 second, and we'll then change the seconds by 1. So we just add 1 to a variable called seconds. When we get to 60, we reset the seconds and we change the minutes by 1. When the minutes get to 60, we change the hours by 1 and reset the minutes. And last, when we get to when the hours get to 24, we reset the hours to 0. So they're the two parts: setup and loop. This part of the loop program is an algorithm, which is quite important in STEM because it's like a recipe, and it contains both mathematics and logic. The logic being that we've used an if statement. If this condition is satisfied, then we go and do these things. The mathematics is this one here, which is really just adding 1 to seconds. So it's quite simple. But if we group all these together, we've got an algorithm which will allow us to calculate the right time. Now we can also use functions. So we can get all of the items, all the programming blocks on time or our algorithm, and we can put them together in a single function. So there's a wrapper here or an outer block, and I've transferred all of the logic, and the whole of the algorithm has been put inside a function which is called check time. So there's another function which is update the display, and this makes the program look a little bit easier to read. So we just wait a second, check the time, and update the display. So another goal is to learn how to create and use functions. Okay, so let's go live and fire up the desktop version of UIFlow. Okay, so there's the program, but let's clear it. So we're starting from fresh, and the first thing to do is to go and give the project a name. So we're going to call this watch version 1. And the first thing we're going to do is drag 3 labels across. 1, 2, and 3. So let's give some of these labels properties. The first one is label 0, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And we want to increase the font size so it's a bit more readable. Get hold of it with your mouse, drag it across to the center, and we repeat that with label 1, which will be for minutes. Rotate it 90 degrees and set the font to 18. So there's minutes. Start off with hours, minutes, and finally seconds goes into label 2. So we'll rotate that by 90 degrees and set a default of 18. I'll set the text at 18, and we line up these so that they're all in the same line. So you're actually drawing on this what will appear on the screen. Okay, so under setup, we're going to create 3 variables. The first variable will be hours. Another variable will be minutes. And the last variable will be seconds. So what we want to do is set those all to 0. So we're going to get hold of the seconds. We take it from the variables group, and we do the same again. We're going to set hours, minutes, and seconds all to 0. Later, we'll discover a way to set it to the current time. But for the time being, we're just going to set it to midnight. Now, change all these. So the first one becomes hours. And what you do, there's a little triangle here. Click with your mouse with the left mouse button, and you can select which variable you want to do. So this one will become hours. The next one will become minutes, and the last one seconds. Now go into the group under maths. So when you click on maths, all the maths functions will come up. There's quite a bit of maths. You can do arithmetic, you can do fractions, all sorts of things, round numbers. One we just want to put a number in there. So we're going to drag that block across. So we're setting hours to 0. We're going to repeat that, drag that across to minutes. And finally, we go to the same block again, and we've set all of our variables to 0 at the start of our program. Now let's see how we can create the loop. You do that by going right to the top under the event group. You click on that, select loop, and drag that just under setup. And you can put the other functions inside, and they'll click on here. So one of the first things you can do is display. And what we want to do is display these. So we want to put hours, minutes, and seconds into these placeholders that we've put on our screen. So when you open up the UI group, you've got other commands, and there's a group of commands under label that you can drag across. So open that up and drag label as your first command under loop. We're going to repeat that. Just grab it again. And finally, grab the next one. And we'll change, this one is for hours. So instead of showing the text hello M5, we're going to drag hours. So bring hours and click it into this little block. So it's a bit like Lego. We've got one block inside another block, and the whole purpose is to show the hours on label 0. The next one will change to label 1. Go into the variables, select minutes, and click the minutes inside the statement or the command for label 1. And finally, we just repeat that. We get hold of seconds and click it in this part of the command. And we want to make sure that's in the right place, so we'll put down label 2. Okay, let's do the first part of the algorithm. So we're going to change the seconds every time we go around the loop. So we'll get hold of seconds and drag it down just under, and we'll set the seconds to. Now, rather than picking that one, we'll delete that one and delete that one. Let's go back to it. So rather than picking set seconds, let's pick the next one, which is change seconds by 1. That's exactly what we want to do. You could change that if you wanted to, but this suits our purpose. Now, if we go around the loop, at some time, we're going to get to 60 seconds, and At that time, we want to reset the seconds to 0. So we need a little bit of logic. So go into the logic group, click it with your left mouse button and pick an if-do and drag that across. So we've got it here, and we just bring it right under and let it click into place. Need a little bit more logic. And the next logic is comparing the seconds with the maximum number of seconds, which is 60. So in the first one, we want to say, if the seconds are equal to 60, then reset it. And what we do is that we go to variables, drag the seconds across, and let it click inside this statement. So seconds equals, and we need maths. So we go to maths rather, bring the maths across, and instead of 0, this time we'll put in 60. So if seconds equals 60, what we're going to do is to set the seconds. So we will set the seconds block down, and we'll set the seconds to 0. Go to our maths, bring the number block down, and we'll set the seconds to 0. But we also need to change the minutes. So we'll go back to variables, change, and instead of seconds, go down and select minutes. So this time, once we reach 60 seconds, we reset the seconds to 0, and we also change the minutes by 1. So we do something similar for minutes, and we can duplicate the whole of that block and put it right under and just change the variable names. So when minutes gets to 60, set the minutes to 0 and change the hour by 1. And finally, we've got to do something with hours. So we can duplicate this again, drag it under the whole block, and if the hours gets to 24, set the hours to 0, and we can delete that final one. So we're just about all ready now. I think we've completed everything, except we need a timer. So we go down to this various blocks, and under timer, you can drag the wait 1 second across and just put that under. So that's the last thing in this loop that we do. And it just repeats this every second. It'll be okay as long as we're very fast. If we do this, all of these steps in a very small fraction of a second, then most of the time going through this loop will be just waiting 1 second. Okay, let's see if we can now download Watch, but before we do that, we'll save it. So we'll click on the save, and we'll save that. And I've already got a version. I'm now going to replace my previous version with the same name into the document, my M5 stat folder. So let's check that we're connected. So if I go back to my M5 stick C, you need to reset and put it into mode 2. So that's USB mode. So remember, reset 2 clicks of button B and wait until you get the USB icon. When you get that, your M5 stick C is ready. So it may be that you get the wrong icon. Just repeat it until you get a USB icon to let you know that you're in mode 2 communications with your Windows PC. So you can confirm that if you go down to the bottom blue strip here and press update status, it tells me that I'm connected now to my M5 stick C. So all you have to do now is go to the last button on that strip and download it or upload it to your M5 stick C. So it's telling me now that the program has been put inside. Let's go and have a look at it. We'll stop sharing the Windows PC and we'll have a look at the camera overlooking our M5 stick C. And we'll pick the right camera. So we'll, okay, so here's our watch. And as you can see, it's updating the seconds. We're at 32 seconds at the moment. It doesn't seem to be too bad timing. Up to 40 seconds. And hopefully when we get to, it'll only show 59. When it gets to 60, it should update the minutes. So you can see we've now updated. We have one minute and we're repeating the cycle now for the seconds. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. And we'll share the screen again. We'll go back to the PowerPoint presentation. Okay, so that first program is quite simple, but here are a few challenges and I'll let you have a go at this yourself, but I will put the solutions into my Dropbox folder under programs. And the first challenge is that see if you can set the time according to the current time. And I'll give you a clue on how to do it. And that's given in the next one. So we go to the event group of blocks and we pick the buttons. And one solution could be that we use button A. So as soon as you press button B, you update the display and change the seconds by 1. Similarly, you can select button B and change the minutes. And lastly, you can change, or when you press button A and B together, you update the hours by 1. So that's one way that you could actually do it, and just add that to your program and it hopefully should work. Some other challenges. I've suggested that if you do buy the GPS module that can locate you with GPS coordinates, you can also capture GPS time. And with the atomic clock on board the satellites, you get very, very accurate timing. And you can get support with the timing function using UIFlow because they have a special block of commands just for the GPS unit. Okay, so I hope you found that worthwhile. Here are some of the references that you might want to follow up. I find it quite fascinating to look at the invention of the clock, and the book that I'm recommending is The Genius of China, which covers the invention of the clock. So here are some more references. The one right on the bottom there, Inventions and Science, there's a pretty good video about that first clock in China, where one of the cities in China where it was invented has recreated a life-size model of the first clock. Okay, that's all for now. So I hope you found that useful. Bye-bye.